Shalom and welcome to another edition of Parsha Talk. I'm Rabbi Elliot Malamet, the Highland Park Conservative Temple Congregation Anshe Emet, talking to you from Tel Aviv, Neve Tzedek in Israel. Joining me, my good friends, Rabbi Barry Chesler, Solomon Shady Day School of Long Island, and Rabbi Jeremy Kalmanovsky, Anshe Chesed in New York City. We are recording this. It is already New Year's in Israel. There is a bit of a celebration going on in the streets of Tel Aviv. I was out a little earlier just to pick up some provisions, like an orange and a banana and things for
I
breakfast.
think the orange is a designated fruit for the
That's
new
right.
year.
The Tel Aviv is called the Big Orange. I don't know really why, although it's not hard to figure out. Tel Aviv was
Well,
situated
Jaffa.
Yeah, the
near
apple.
a lot of orange groves. Um, this might be a little shorter because we're going to get bumped for my shul's minyan. We are recording this New Year's and wishing everyone, our loyal audience, a happy secular New Year. Going to complete the book of Breshit, and we're unrehearsed here. We did not have a chance to talk about this since there is a big time difference between me and my colleagues here. So we're going to go jump right into it. Vayehi, last parsha in the book of Breshit. First thing that I want to point out, 17 years, brackets, the life of Jacob, Vayehi.
So Sarnia points out
Go
something
ahead.
very interesting, and that is the same thing happens with Abraham, who leaves Ur Kasdim at 75, and he's 75, and Yitzchak is 75 when he dies. So you have Abraham having 75 bracketing the beginning and end of his life, and 17 with Yaakov.
Right.
Jacob. Wait, what are you saying? Oh, Joseph is 17 when he gets sold into slavery, and then
Right. And
Jacob
then
has
they're
17
reunited
years.
for 17 years.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
The ages of the patriarchs are somewhat large, and we've talked about this in the past that they have a certain kind of formula to that. I think we should leave that. What I'm troubled by or want to start with is what Jacob says to Joseph at the very very beginning of the parsha. He's giving him a bit of a history. If you want to look carefully at chapter 48, I'm just going to jump in. Verse 3, Vayomer Yaakov El Yosef, Jacob speaks to Joseph, El Shaddai ner alai beluz, God spoke to me in Luz. He said to me, Hineni mafrecha v'arbiticha, I'm going to make you large, numerous, nitaticha likalamim, I'm going to make you into numerous nations. V'natati et haaretz hazot lezarecha, I'm going to give you this land to your seed. Your two sons who are born to you in Eretz Mitzrayim, they'll be to me like Ruvain and Shimon. It goes down. Verse 7 is the real verse of puzzle for me. Va'ani b'vo'i mi Padan. When I came from Padan, meta alai Rachel. Rachel died upon me, as it were, Be'eretz Canaan, in the land of Canaan.
She went and died on me.
Yeah, exactly. Ba'od kivrat eretz lavo Efrat, as we were making our way to Efrat, and I buried her there, b'derech Efrat, on the way to Efrat, he beit lachem. And of all the things that he could say, he is choosing this one. So I'm asking you this question, really, kind of out of left field, which is, he doesn't talk about Joseph, he doesn't talk about, Dinah, he doesn't talk about his time with Lavan, he doesn't talk about anything else. But he talks about the death of Rachel. And I'm struck by that. And on the other hand, maybe I shouldn't be struck by that. Maybe that's been the center of his life. Maybe that's what he wants.
If you
So
weren't struck by it, we would have nothing to talk about. So I think
well,
it's
we'd have
good.
plenty to talk about. There's plenty in the Parsha beyond this. So what do you make of this?
So Sarna points out something. I have, I must say, mixed feelings about Sarna's commentary. It's entirely too psychological for me. He does great things with the numbers, though. I like that. But his comment here is that noting that traditional commentators have by and large understood this verse to be an apology for Jacob for troubling his son with the arduous task of burying him in the cave of Machpelah, when basically he dumped his mother at the side of the road.
Yeah.
Right. So in other words, what sets it off is the request to take me back at great expense, time, money to Eretz Canaan, even though I did not perhaps treat your mother with the kavod that she deserved.
So that is exactly Rashi's, claim on this.
Well,
And
he
I
said it was traditional,
and Rashi is reasonably
pretty
traditional,
traditional
but he was a
for a
pretty fun
French
guy.
guy.
Yeah, from guy for a French guy. But first of all, I just want to point out the importance in biblical Israel of Ephraim as the kind of apotheosis of the northern tribes, and the use of the word lehafrot throughout this. God spoke to me and said, "Hineni mafrecha," and that's Ephraim's name. Hifrani Elohim be'eretz onyi, and she dies in Ephrat. And I just think that the Ephraim connotation of this whole passage is a strong one. And I think that the importance of burying him in Eretz Yisrael, the importance of Joseph also wanting to be buried in Eretz Yisrael, and Rachel's tomb, all of these things are so important to Breshit. And with respect to Rachel's tomb and with respect to Joseph's tomb, the stories, I think, I'm just intuiting here, but it seems obvious to me, um, make sense because even in biblical times, those places were venerated. you know,
Mhm.
Kever Rachel, as the Midrash has it, that Kever Rachel was by the road, so that when the Babylonians were driving the Jews into exile, they would pass by Rachel's tomb and she would pray for them. And and in rabbinic times, Rachel's tomb was a place. I'm going to guess that Bible time it was a well-known place too. And so maybe there's an apology. Listen, I'm making you take me to Hebron, and I was not so nice to Rachel. But I'm inclined to read it more positively as we have important burial sites, Machpelah, Shechem, and Efrat, that are really important to us.
Right. But what's interesting is that if I remember correctly, Marada Machpelah is designated an achuzah, right? It's some kind of holding in the land, and it is in fact the first piece of property that belongs to Abraham. That's not said about the other burial sites. But what struck me when listening to you talk about the connection of Ephraim to the story is that in effect what Jacob does when he reverses the blessing is he tells Joseph that he's not the oldest son, he's actually the youngest son. And I think that's incredibly important because I think part of the psychology of Joseph is he wanted to be a Bechor. He was the Bechor of his mother, of course, but Nebuch, he was 11 out of 12, not so great. And by wanting Menashe to be blessed first, I think Joseph is trying to establish his claim as an older son. And Jacob, says, no, that's not the way we do things here. You are the younger son, and that's where your greatness is going to be. And that's why Ephraim is going to be the main son from you.
But he is. This is quite correct, and it is the elevation of the second, the latter born son. But what effectively happens here is exactly what Devarim says should not happen here, which is that the son of the more beloved wife it gets what is the sign of Bechorship, which is to say a double inheritance. So Ephraim and Menashe each get their own inheritance. So Reuben and Shimon and Ephraim and Menashe have equal inheritance. That is to say, Joseph gets the double portion. So he
Right.
he
But
gets
also there's a financial thing too, because he gives
huge,
Joseph a gift, right? It's
huge.
not just a double tribe, it's a monetary doubling as well that Joseph gets.
Well, I think the tribal part, because it's also a land chalukah, a land distribution, is
Yeah.
also very strongly an economic benefit. Um, and this is exactly what Devarim. I mean, it's so interesting in Parshat Ki Teitzei that Devarim says, "Listen, you got two wives, one beloved, one less beloved, or one hated. You cannot you cannot treat the son of the beloved wife as the Bechor if he's not the physical Bechor." And that's Genesis's most favorite topic is to do precisely that.
So why is that, do you think? What strikes me is that the law tends to present itself as being very neat, but real life is very messy. And
Yeah.
Genesis is a mess. It's kind of tohu vavohu. Maybe that's really why the story begins with Tohu Vavohu, and the rest of the Torah and subsequent Israelite and Jewish history on the land is an attempt to wrest order out of that primal chaos.
Well, I like the theme of order out of primal chaos. I think that's really profound. Um, and I like the theme that the regularity of the law can't account for every detail. I also think that despite the fact that the Bible clearly comes from a place, a society in which treats birth order as really important and the inheritance things that attend upon that, and it's suspicious of so much hierarchy, and it likes to subvert hierarchy, and it likes Evan Ma'asu Habonim Hayatala Rosh Pinah, the thing that you think is least likely to be good turns out to be the best thing. And so all these second-born children, morally or charismatically gifted, um, outwitting the older kind of doofusy, and in Ruvain's case, not so nice sexually, in Shimon's case, not so nice violently. Um, Joseph is the one chosen by God, and God can choose the stone which the builders despised.
So you mentioned the scene that is going to happen here, where the brothers are going to be around Jacob's deathbed, and as I read this now, I'm struck by the differentiation that already takes place. He has a kind of private moment with Joseph. The adoption of Ephraim and Manasseh is constituted as a moment that is separate from his time with the whole family. And the deathbed scene it's a fairly intimate moment. He still has his wits about him, Jacob. And wouldn't you think that this would be another cause of envy and enmity between the brothers and Jacob? That you get
So,
that the precious last moments. You have your own private moment with him. That's not fair. I don't know.
so what's interesting to me is that the adoption of Ephraim and Manasseh is a private moment.
Yeah.
So how do the brothers find out about it? And then one of the things that your comment suggested to me is that there are two ways that the end of the book could go. One could be the way that it is, which is a kind of a living will, where the patriarch gathers his children about him and gives them his blessing or message. And the other thing could be a reading of the will, where this is the patriarch is dead, and now we're reading his last will and testament. And I just wonder what would make a better impression on the children, given the actual terms of chapter 49, to hear it in the presence of Yaakov or to hear it after his death.
This is so much more dramatic, so much more poignant.
Well,
Here you have the individual saying these things, himself, and then he pulls his legs back into the bed and dies. It's just perfect theater, I think. I mean, and
as deathbed scenes go, it's one of the best.
it's that messy one. What I'm saying is, that maybe a will. I don't know what's worse. I mean, he does say terrible things to Ruvain.
Well,
Uh,
I think this is actually better what happens because for two reasons. First of all, if he's dead, then people say, oh, he was already gone before he died. And with Jacob there, they have to take it. And if they're going to learn from it, it's easier to learn from hearing it directly from Jacob than to hear about it afterwards.
I had an experience like that where a person read the will of their deceased parent. It was such a poison pen letter. It was horrible, and they came in to see me, and it was filled with just wretched emotion. And I can't believe my mother said this to me, and I said, "She's dead." That there's not much you can do about that. And you know what? You didn't deserve it. And so I gave the only Hasidic advice I ever gave in my life, which was take the letter to her grave and burn it and then bury it in the grave. And that way you will burn the memory of this letter and it will remain buried with her. And he did it.
And did it work?
And you know what? Yes and no. Obviously, something like that is not going to go away. But I think having a symbolic way of exercising that
No, it's a
is,
great suggestion,
yeah, because it
but
says
not
the
all
anger
great
is dead.
suggestions work.
No.
What I was thinking, the flip side of that is when y you're the one who's alive and you have not made peace with the deceased, so you go to the grave and beg for forgiveness,
That's the
which is
that's
also a
the
powerful statement.
Is
that's
it,
the
you know what, is it powerful, but, or is it just a charade? Because
Oh,
there's
it's not
nothing,
just a charade.
no.
Because then you don't go, right? If you can't invest meaning in it, then you simply stay home.
Well, the
I can't
tradition
believe
said
that you would take the trouble to go to that a person would take the trouble to go to a kever and not be moved by it.
you have to go with a minion. You have to go with 10 people, according to the Shulchan Aruch, I think, or it's just,
Yeah.
I can't understand like that scenario that you just described. I mean, the unresolved emotion that people have. Like I read this book, Sam Heilman, who's the sociology professor at
right.
Brooklyn College, I think, and he wrote a book about Hasidic dynasties in the post-war period, and and I forget who this person was, but there was some guy, and he left Europe and he went to South America, and then he ultimately came back to Israel, and he entered the rabbinic establishment. He was like the chief rabbi of Afula or something like that, and his because he Zionized, his Hasidim turned on him, and they basically stole his children and raised them, to replace him. And he, in the end, instructed them, "You are not to say Kaddish for me. You are not to mourn for me." And just the anger. I don't remember many more of the details, but the anger and the rage uh, from a parent towards a child, I just cannot even conceive of it. It's just blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And Yaakov Avinu. Okay. Ruvain, you're my firstborn child. I love you so much. You're such a jerk. I cannot believe you slept with Bilhah. And Shimon and Levi, you got some passion, guys, but you're just like you're terrible people. Like what in the world is going on in these things?
Yeah. So that's the I see my minion is coming on here, uh, because
Okay,
it's,
so I just was just a final line because you are in Eretz Yisrael right now,
yes.
and I feel very, very strongly, as I have conveyed to my children, that I want to be buried in Israel. I really don't, it doesn't bother me to think that no one will come to visit the grave or something like
You
that.
have a place in mind?
I do not, but I figure at some point in the next, bunch of years, when I can still pay for it, I'd like to arrange it. So, and that sense of homeland um, is so this book is about, we've discussed this in the past, the Torah in general, but Genesis in particular, is very exile focused. Abraham is always having to go away, and Jacob's having to go away, and Isaac is the one guy who doesn't go away. But that sense of lostness, exile, the desire to return just comes through so, even though the book does end in exile, and the book ends as diaspora Jews longing for that homeland, it is just such a strong thing in this book that I have to be part of this land. And it's been true in Jewish history that, the Gemara in Ketubot has an extended sugya about burial in the land of Israel, including the statement that y'all should have come when you were alive, not horizontally. Y'all should have come vertically. So a little bit of a dig, but I feel that this is an emotional center to the conclusion of Genesis.
It is,
Yeah.
and we have different views on burial, and I haven't really, considered what you are considering as a practical plan in my own life, notwithstanding the fact that I'm deeply connected here. I feel much more pragmatic about these things altogether, and what I want to take out of what you're saying is, there's a need for a kind of return, a primal return or a mythical return, and that
So
is this very strong theme in the end of Mishnah.
Well, what I would add, it's not just that what sometimes we overlook when we think about the return is it's also making a statement about our beginning. And
Yeah,
when we go back to Adam, who's told that you came from dust and you will return to dust, the riff here is that because you're going to be buried in Israel, there's a sense that you think that's where you came from originally as well. And I think that's
interesting.
quite powerful.
Yeah. Um, it. I always like to point out that Breshit doesn't end on a high note, and it's on a sad note.
It ends with embalmment.
With embalmment, it ends with Joseph in a box. Joseph being the first slave. Hang on, and we're gonna see that. We're gonna end it there. We're gonna say Shabbat Shalom to
And
everyone
we wish a wonderful davening to the good people
of the
of
Highland
Highland Park
Park.
Conservative Tevon Shemet.
Okay,
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. This is Parsha
Shabbat
Talk
shalom.
Live with
Happy New
everybody,
Year. Have
and
a
we'll see
great
you
trip the rest
all.
of your time in Israel. Go see your children and love your
Thank you so
grandchildren.
much. Take care.
All
Bye
right,
bye.
be well.
Bye bye. Bye bye. All right.